College, and to the third presentation in the Physical Culture Education Series, sponsored by the SVC Health and Fitness Club. My name is Nicholas Raculia, and I'm an Associate Professor of Finance here at St. Vincent and a starting strength coach. The mission of the Physical Culture Education Series is to investigate various aspects of health, fitness, nutrition, and training. It presents lecturers who use a reason-based approach to fitness and aims to challenge much of the conventional wisdom that surrounds all aspects of physical culture. You're here to listen to Coach Ripito, so I will keep my remarks and introduction very brief. First, some housekeeping. After the lecture, Rip will answer questions. Just please raise your hand and Rip will call on you. Second, some thanks are in order. First, I want to thank the St. Vincent College Health and Fitness Club, led by President Chen Luan. I'm grateful for the extraordinary effort put forth by the SVC lifting family to make this lecture series possible. They have done a ton of work building and promoting this series. I would also like to thank SVC Strength and Conditioning Coach John Bell for his unwavering support. And finally, I'd like to thank my friend Brad Lewis, whose generous support helped make this lecture possible. Tonight's speaker, Mark Ripito, is changing the way we think about strength and wellness. He is more than a best-selling author, though Starting Strength 3rd edition is considered to be the finest text on strength training yet written. He is more than a world-class strength coach, though anyone under his direct tutelage will recognize a master of human movement at work. And he is more than the owner-operator of StartingStrength.com, itself an incredible source of free knowledge for those hoping to get stronger and healthier. He is a mentor to many, myself included, and I am personally grateful for his influence in my life. He has changed the trajectory of many of the people sitting here in this room. Please join me in welcoming Coach Mark.
I can't believe he settled. I'm personally embarrassed by all that, Nicholas. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming tonight. This is a bigger crowd than we'd anticipated, I believe, isn't it? That's good. And so we're glad you guys are here. This is a rather specialized topic that we're going to deal with tonight. So, those of you that are just here for the hell of it may end up bored by the time this is over with. We're talking about strength and conditioning tonight. And it's a topic that is growing in popularity and is also becoming rather watered down by some aspects of that popularity. And this is kind of what we're wanting to talk about tonight. Strength and conditioning in 2015 is kind of an interesting subject. It is becoming, there are more articles written about it in Sports Illustrated and various general media outlets than typically have appeared in the past 2 or 3 decades prior to now. And I think probably the reason for that is the phenomenal growth of CrossFit and some of the additional exposure that particular growth of the industry has caused. I think that strength and conditioning programs at the college level across the country are growing in enrollment due to the increase in interest by people like you in strength and conditioning. And I think that it is this growth in popularity is resulting in several types of problems, because what I see as a strength and conditioning coach, I've been in this business for 38 years. I've got lifting shoes older than most of you people in the audience. And I have seen a direction away from what I consider to be productive strength and conditioning. A direction that has been codified by the certification agencies that grant credentials that many of you possess. I'm unhappy when I see brand new generation of strength conditioning certificates who have been granted a certification that did not include basic instruction in how to coach the barbell exercises. And those of us that are in the barbell end of this thing understand that barbell training is the most important aspect of efficiently developing strength in everybody. And the reason for this I'll discuss later, but what I'm especially unhappy about right now is that we are currently here in 2015 encumbered with a lot of people writing on the internet and a lot of people in a position on a podium, kind of like I am right now, who are of the opinion that you can get strong without getting strong. And what I mean by that is this current emphasis ignores the fact that strength is this production of force. That a man with a 500-pound deadlift is stronger than a man with a 200-pound deadlift. And it seems to me as though this emphasis is just a way to avoid having to coach these basic movements. The basic exercises, the squat, the deadlift, press, the bench press, and the Olympic lifts, the power clean and the power snatch, along with chins, are the basis of any productive strength program. And the emphasis now is on making the things we do in the weight room look like the things we're going to do with the strength on the field. Right? And this is called functional training. And it's a profound misunderstanding of specificity. Okay? And I'll talk more about that later. Now, the title of the talk is what? What did I call the title? The Case for the Starting Strength Model. That's right. Starting Strength Model is the result of my activities in running a gym in North Texas since 1984. I got into the business in 1978, and I've been doing this a very long time. I bought Wichita Falls Athletic Club as an existing gym. It was had another name. I bought it, changed the name to Wichita Falls Athletic Club because I liked the sound of the name of the gym, the Texas Athletic Club. Any of you guys know what the Texas Athletic Club was? Nobody? Texas Athletic Club was owned by Mike Graham, and it was a black iron gym in the middle of downtown Austin. And that gym was responsible for a great number of powerlifting and bodybuilding champions back in the 70s. And Mike was an early mentor of mine, and I decided we needed to be the Wichita Falls Athletic Club. And so everybody whose gym is named Wichita, is named something something Athletic Club after the town, owes me a franchise fee. All right, some of you in the audience probably need to get your checkbook out because I'll need that before I leave. You guys got to get home, you know. So, Wichita Falls Athletic Club started in 1984, and me not knowing any better, everybody that came into Wichita Falls Athletic Club learned how to squat, bench press, deadlift, and power clean. And because I didn't know how to do it any other way, that's the way I started it. And it proved to be a very effective method for improving the physical capacity of everybody that signed up. I bought the gym in March of 1984 and opened the thing, believe it or not, on April Fool's Day of 1984. April the 1st was our first day in business. And the second member I signed up, The second guy I signed up was a retired 55-year-old Air Force Lieutenant Colonel. And those of you that have had experience with senior retired Air Force officers know that this guy was a pain in the ass. And he had absolutely no intention of getting strong. He just, doctor told him he needed to do some exercise and stuff. So I showed him how to squat, bench press, deadlift, power clean, all this stuff. This guy stayed with us for the rest of his life. He died about 5 years ago and became, in fact, the only master's elite level lifter in North Texas. At the age of 73, he deadlifted 407 at a meet at a body weight of 181 pounds at the age of 73. So I had Darrell for a very long period of time. He got very strong, having no intention of doing that at all when we first started out. But he got bitten by the bug. If some of you have found out, it is very compelling to watch your numbers go up. And this going up of the numbers became the basis for the starting strength method. What I did when I took in new members, every single one of them I kept notes on. And I either did it myself or I had them get a book. And what we did was, right on the first page, here's an open notebook, right over here on the left side, day one. And I'd get 10 columns in that 2-page book, 5 per page. And what I did was, every time they came in, we went up on all of the lists. So 10 workouts is almost a month worth of training. And if everybody that comes in to your gym experiences linear improvement in their strength that is visible across 2 pages of a notebook, it is very difficult to argue with a method like that. Because, as you're aware, most other exercise methods only revisit an exercise occasionally because the emphasis nowadays is on variety and exercise selection is the main variable. We used about 5 different exercises and that's all. And as a result of my desire to show these people a material quantitative increase over a short period of time, I discovered that pretty much everybody can go up 5 pounds a workout on their squat. And that accumulates into quite a bit of an increase over 10 workouts. And some people were able to go up faster than that. And we just experimented with this very simple, basic method of my application of the barbell exercises to beginners training, beginners of all ages, all sexes, all levels of capability. And as a result of my use of this extremely simple approach to training, where the load was the variable and not the exercise selection, I discovered that this thing is the single most effective way to improve the single most important physical parameter for the human body, which is strength. Okay? And we continued this process and refined it over the years to include almost no machine training. I used a little bit of machine stuff at first because I thought I was supposed to. And then I quit doing that when I realized it made absolutely no difference to the end product. And then we started alternating the press with the bench press over time because I found that that was easier on everybody's shoulders. And just through experimenting with this, we refined this thing down into the 5 basic barbell exercises and chin-ups that you know as the starting strength novice method today. And it works better, quite literally, than any other way we have to improve strength. Now, what is strength? This is a point of contention, usually just on the internet, because strength is a very simple thing to understand. Strength is the ability to produce force against an external resistance, right? And if we understand this simple reality about strength, then we understand that it can be quantitatively increased incrementally, and that it accumulates incrementally. And as a result, it is extremely easy to understand the best way to develop strength. Where are you now? So day one, what do? Teach a person how to squat. We learn how to squat. And in teaching everybody how to squat, we are going to encounter a great number of movement problems, aren't we? A whole bunch of people, the vast majority of the human race, does not know how to squat until you show them how to do that. Okay? So in teaching people how to squat in the gym for 25 years, I developed the ability to fix movement problems related to how to squat. And then I wrote all of that fixing down in that book. Right? How to bench press. Not everybody knows how to bench press. You have to learn how to teach the movement pattern. You have to learn how to teach the deadlift. The movement pattern is not intuitively obvious. You have to analyze the movement pattern, figure out the way the human body operates a barbell being pulled off the ground and why it operates it that way, and then you tailor your teaching method to obey those rules. Okay? When you go through the process of teaching several thousand people how to do these complicated movements, you have been exposed to a great number of movement problems that you have had to learn how to solve. Natural athletes, few of you in the audience are probably natural athletes. Let me tell you that you natural athletes contributed absolutely nothing to those of us that had to learn the hard way how to teach people that didn't know how to squat. Natural athletes know how to squat because they've seen it done and they can copy it very effectively. Natural athletes are not the best resource for teaching people how to solve these movement problems. Right? Is that intuitively obvious to everyone? If it's easy to teach somebody how to squat, then the job of teaching them how to squat is not very hard, is it? Right? Does that make sense? Now, where would you expect to find the worst strength and conditioning coaches in the industry? D1 schools. Right? Why? Who are they coaching? Natural athletes. People that have no trouble with movement problems. People for whom movement problems are a foreign concept. They're recruited because they don't have any movement problems. They're recruited because they're good at this already. So if all you ever deal with is talented, extremely talented athletes, you may actually be under the impression that we don't really have to learn how to teach people how to squat. We don't really have to learn how to teach people how to press or clean or bench press or do any of these other movements that normal people have problems doing, because you don't see normal people. You see talented athletes. Okay? Now, back to strength for a second. Strength is the ability to push on something. The ability to produce force against an external resistance. Okay? In the case of barbell training, external resistance is the bar. We push between the floor and the bar. We apply force, we generate force with the little motors that operate our skeleton, which is a system of levers. Those motors are the muscles. We make those little muscles, little leverage motors, operate the skeleton, and the end result is the bar moves. Right? So between the floor and my hands, in whatever position we find them, I will be generating force. And with the tool that we have in the barbell, the force can be increased incrementally at whatever rate of incremental increase suits you. Your particular needs can be satisfied by either a tiny little increase or a 10, 15 pound increase, just depending on the situation. If I've got a kid that comes into the gym that's got a great big giant vertical and is very efficient in terms of a neuromuscular system, this kid gets strong faster than a 55-year-old housewife. But the method is the same. We find out what they can squat today, and in the process of finding it out, we also teach them how to squat correctly. Once we discover that number, we go up a little bit next time. Now, a little bit, maybe 2 pounds, a little bit, maybe 15 pounds. But we have the flexibility to adapt to the ability of the trainee because we've got these little bitty plates that fit on the bar. We've also got great big plates that fit on the bar. So we can tailor the method for anybody that walks in the gym. Anybody that walks in the gym, if I'm good at teaching them what to do, if I know how to teach the movement pattern, then I can teach anybody that walks in the gym how to do this thing that I can then make incrementally heavier next time, and therefore produce the type of strength that the human body is designed to generate. Okay? Because of the nature of barbell exercise. What is barbell exercise? It's basically just loaded human movement, isn't it? If I put a bar on my back, I squat down and I stand back up, does that take special equipment? We squat down and stand back up all day. Do we pick something up off the floor with special equipment? No, just a bar with plates on it. Do we press something up overhead? That's a perfectly natural movement. It's how you get the stuff in the cabinet, right? So these 3 basic movements, and then we add the bench press in because we have developed this bench tool. Now that requires some special equipment, but once again, it's not a particularly complicated movement that is dependent on the machine we had to invent, okay? And then we add to that the Olympic-derived lifts that employ acceleration as a basic component of the loading scheme. We have to pull on it fast enough so that it continues on upward when we change from the pull to the catch. This requires a little bit of athletic ability, and it is instrumental in an athlete's training because it's how we keep the display of power even with our increasing strength. Power is an aspect of strength, right? Power is strength displayed quickly, right? And as your strength goes up, your power goes up along with it. And the power clean allows us to maintain the display of that power as the strength that it depends on increases, okay? Now, these exercises are just simple human movement. There's nothing that has to be invented in terms of machinery in order to let us do this normal human movement that we have now the ability, since we have a barbell, to incrementally make heavier and heavier and heavier. The strength increase is perfectly natural. All your muscles operate in their anatomically selected capacity within that movement pattern. Now contrast that with leg extensions and leg curls, okay? Everybody knows what a leg extension and a leg curl machine looks like, right? Is it possible to do a quadricep contraction in isolation from all the rest of the muscles of the leg without a leg extension machine? No. That's why we had to invent the machine to do it, right? Is it possible to use the hamstrings in isolation from the rest of the muscles of the legs and the hips without a leg curl machine? No. That's why we had to invent the machine to do it. All right? But if you squat, you're using both of those muscle groups, and your anatomy determines what percentage of the movement force being generated is generated by each one of those two muscle groups. Now, if I was going to select a load for the leg extension versus the leg curl to keep in balance, what would that load be? What would the ratio be? Does anybody know? I certainly as hell don't know, and I've been doing this for 38 years. I hadn't figured it out. But I don't care. Because when I squat, the squat sorts it out. The squat determines how much of the load my quadriceps do and how much of the load my hamstring does. Now, I can design the squat in a way that takes advantage of greater and lesser amounts of muscle mass by doing the squat in a particular way versus another way. And we get into this in great detail in the seminar. But suffice it to say that the way we teach the squat, we want to throw the emphasis on the big muscles of the hips and the big stout joint of the hips, and let the hips do most of the work, and the knees and the quadriceps just go along for the ride. Because we have less trouble teaching it that way. We have no capacity for knee injuries teaching it that way, and the big muscles of the posterior chain are the ones that we predominantly use in all aspects of sports and human force generation activities. Okay? The same thing goes for all the other barbell exercises we do. We can do them wrong or we can do them right. We just need to determine what right means. And then we have to figure out a way to teach it that way. And the figuring out the way to teaching it that way is the hard part. Those of you that hold our certification, starting strength coach certification, know that teaching barbell exercise is very challenging, because you have to know how to get people to move the way you want them to move. You have to have multiple tools in your box in order to get them to move this way, because every person that you coach will have a different set of movement problems that you as a coach have to learn how to solve. Okay? And the way you learn how to do that is to do it. You have to understand some basic information. You have to understand anatomy. You have to understand how the hip is constructed, how the shoulder is constructed. You have to know muscle origins and insertions and their collective action together in a movement pattern. You've got to know what to tell people in order to get them to react properly to what you're telling them to do. You have to be very flexible in your approach to loading. You have to invent new ways to explain things all the time. And after you've done this for quite a period of time, you will have sufficient experience to call yourself a coach. But unless you dive in and start to solve these problems, you'll never learn it. Okay? You'll never learn how to do this most important job in coaching strength, and that is solving human movement pattern problems. We as barbell coaches are professionals at solving human movement problems under a load. It takes time, it takes experience, it takes great background knowledge in anatomy, it takes understanding of physics, it takes a thorough understanding of every aspect of the way the bar learn it overnight. You can't learn it in school from books. You have to do it. You have to get in a gym and teach people how to do this stuff. That brings us to the current problem. The current problem is that a huge majority of the certification-based preparation that we see in strength and conditioning today is not concerned with this. They're not concerned with this at all. They're concerned with figuring out ways to not have to coach the squat, the press, the deadlift, the bench press, the clean and the snatch. How do we get around that? And the answer is special exercises that are not movement pattern problems. A lunge, is not a movement pattern problem. That may be an integrity problem for the knee. But if you think that single leg work is a movement pattern problem, then you haven't really tried to coach the squat, because lunges are very, very easy to teach. And all of the other systems that rely on exercise variety, isolated muscle groups, corrective exercise, and ways to make strength movements look like their application in the sports field are not really movement pattern problems. They're easy to coach. That's why we like to do them in our certification programs, because it's easy to get a whole bunch of people through. And the more coaches we have, the more votes we've got. Now, if we want to get into the politics of the situation, how many of you people heard today that there was another development in the Washington, D.C. licensure thing? Anybody see that on the web? It was squashed pretty thoroughly about 3 days ago, but another development today occurred. The head of the Board of Physical Therapy was removed from that licensing development committee. Anybody see that on the web? Interesting development. It's just another step in the direction away from what they wanted to do. And I'll tell you what they wanted to do. And I hate to be cynical about this, but what they wanted to do, there is an organization called US Reps that is a combined council of the NSCA, the ACSM, ACE, AFA, Cooper Clinic, who else? 2 or 3 other organizations. All of which grant a Pilates organization, all of which grant certificates, their certification programs. And their emphasis, their stated emphasis, is to require licensure for exercise professionals at the state level. Licensure. You, as coaches, would be prevented from practicing as coaches without a state license. And guess what you have to have before you can get a state license? One of their certificates. Isn't that clever? They get the state legislature to build them into their business model. Now, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, this is bullshit. Okay? This is a naked appeal to the power of government to ensure a reduction in competition. Myself, and Coach Musser, and Coach Racula, and Coach Saget, several of other you people are here in the audience. Okay, everybody else in here that's a starting strength coach would not be eligible to coach exercise in your respective state if this little scheme goes through, because you don't hold a certificate from one of these agencies that participated in this power grant. But it looks as though common sense has prevailed in Washington, D.C. My hope is that if common sense can prevail in, of all places, Washington, D.C., that perhaps there's hope to get this idiocy stopped before it progresses too much further anywhere else. That having been said, barbell training is what we do, and I think possibly this is a little basic explanation of why we like barbells better than we like anything else. And the starting strength method is nothing more than the simple application of common sense. It's a recognition of the fact that strength accumulates. Strength accumulates like lots and lots of other things in life. Knowledge, experience, skill, everything worth having accumulates. What it means is that you have to persist over a long period of time in the accumulation of strength. It must be done correctly, the movements must be done correctly, and if the movements, which are complicated, must be done correctly, somebody has to learn how to coach them correctly. This requires patience, time, and intelligence. And we are the only certification in the industry where when you walk into my seminar on the weekend, I tell you, you are not going to pass. Isn't that what I told you? You're not going to pass. And it took her twice. So the first time I was right. You're not going to pass. Our job is not to pass as many people as we can. That makes us different. Our job is to fail as many people as we can so that the ones that remain actually belong there. And this is a different approach. And we're not going to water it down. We've only got, what, 100, 110, 115 coaches right now. And we're adding about 3 a month. We're not a fast-growing organization. I'm sorry, maybe it'll snowball at some point when enough good quality people decide that our certification is the one to handle. But right now, we're not growing very fast. But I assure you that anybody with our credential can help you with your training. Okay? What else do I need to talk about? You got any ideas? Bang for your buck. Strength training is the best way to go. Why are we concerned with getting strong when we're 55? Why is it more important? Why am I standing here telling you that a 55-year-old person with no exercise history is better off strength training than running? Does anybody know why that is? Is it obvious that our ability to interact more effectively with our environment by producing force within our environment is a more important factor in the quality of life than having a low resting heart rate? Does everybody understand why that would be? Why does having a low resting heart rate in the absence of the ability to get up off of the toilet without your hands affect your quality of life? Does running make you stronger? No, it makes you better at running. But how profoundly does running affect the rest of the things you do during the course of your daily activities? And does an increase in your ability to run affect your ability to do other types of sports besides running? The answer is it doesn't. But more importantly, the process of getting stronger for an untrained 55-year-old person provides all of the cardiovascular exercise that that person needs. In the absence of special needs, and I can't think of an instance when needs are that special, strength production, the production of strength through effective strength training, provides all of the cardiovascular benefits a person needs, plus strength through a full range of motion if the training is correct. provides for the ability to more effectively interact with your environment. Interaction with your environment, physical interaction with your environment, is force production. Starts down there, usually ends right here. What does that look like? Looks like a deadlift, press, or a squat, doesn't it? And the simple acquisition of strength, the accumulation of strength from wherever you are right now to the point that the easy acquisition of that strength stops several months down the line, are several very, very important months for your physical well-being. It doesn't take long to get stronger if you don't water down the process with 30 different exercises. You don't need 30 different exercises. You need the 5 we've talked about. And most of you, actually, if you're older, don't need to clean. You don't need to worry about doing explosive stuff. It's not going to help that much, and it does produce some risk of injury in certain populations. So for older people, people over 55, we usually don't have them do cleans because the acquisition of strength drives power up anyway. You get more powerful accidentally if you get strong, in other words. And power, for various reasons, is not that trainable anyway. Explosive people are explosive. People who are not explosive are never going to be explosive. This is another myth that wastes a lot of time in strength and conditioning programs around the country. Here we take a group of 55 athletes who have specifically been recruited for their athletic ability. They may or may not be very strong, but they've all got a big vertical jump. And what does the strength and conditioning department do? Display their athleticism. They have them do games on the floor where they explode and twist and turn and do all the other things that we know they can already do because that's why we hired them. And what do they not do? They don't get their deadlift up. They don't get their press up. They don't get their squat up. So you got a kid with a 36-inch vertical, talented, physically talented athlete who can't squat but 275. And what do you do with him? You have him jump around in the floor and display all of the characteristics that got him hired in the first place. We already know he can do that. What do we need to have him do? Get his squat up to 500. I know that sounds like a big number to some of you guys, doesn't it? For a 19-year-old kid with a 36-inch vertical that weighs 205 pounds, a 500-pound squat is no big deal. And a lot of you actually know that, don't you? A 500-pound deadlift for that kid, that's baseline. If I can't do that with him in 9 months, I'll quit. That's not an accomplishment. That is baseline strength. Okay? But if the strength and conditioning department is pretending like a 500-pound deadlift doesn't matter, and they're just dancing around on the floor with balls and 12-pound dumbbells and balancing and all that other shit. This is why the kid can already do that. You know how we know he can do that? Our recruiter told us so. That's what the recruiter does for a living, is find kids that can do that. That's why they're there. We don't need to waste time doing that, but if he's not strong enough, what can we certainly improve over time? Strength. We can always improve. We understand that very, very well. We know we can get these kids stronger. And if we can, we need to. Because if all we do is get them stronger, every other aspect of physical display improves as a result of the simple process of accumulating strength 5 pounds at a time from wherever it is right now. Okay? Bang for the buck. That's the most bang for the buck. And it's not the most bang for the buck only for college athletes. It's the most bang for the buck for 55-year-old housewives who've never done anything athletic and aren't really interested in doing anything athletic. They're just interested in not being old ladies. we find out how strong they are right now in these normal human movement patterns. How strong are they today in these normal human movement patterns? And then we load them. And we load them a little more. And every time they come in, we go up a little bit. And the process of not monkeying around with 30 different exercises, but concentrating on 4 or 5 exercises that cover the whole body because of the way the movements are designed. And through the process of increasing the load on each one of these movement patterns, causes an accumulation of strength over a relatively short period of time in a 55-year-old person's life that produces a gigantic improvement in the quality of life. Some of you in the audience know this firsthand. Okay? So bang for the buck is what barbell training is all about. It allows us to reach in to a person's potential and jerk the most improvement out of that in the shortest period of time possible. Okay? So, that's my little spiel for tonight. I think we have allotted a whole bunch of time for questions and answers because we anticipate that you guys can contribute to this discussion. So, I'm going to go from one side to the other, and you're going to raise your hand, and I'm going to point to you, and then I'm going to repeat your question for the video and audio record so that we can understand the question asked. So keep it short. Don't make a big wall of text question tonight. All right? Let's start over here. Raise your hand. Canadians. Got a bunch of Canadians in the audience. Nobody wants to talk to them. Here.
How important is diet to strength training?
Diet is very important to strength training, and as you get older, diet becomes more important. All right? Older people do not absorb protein as well out of the GI, and as a result, the quality of protein as you get older has to go up, and the amount of it has to go up too. By the same token, if you need to lose body fat, diet is the way that's done, okay? When we were 23, those of us remember this, when we were 23, we found out that we were a little fat. We just ran around the block a couple more times or added a squat workout, and our body fat would go back down. That doesn't work now. All right? So the older we get, the more important diet becomes. All right? Now, kids have the luxury of just having to eat a bunch. They need to gain weight, they just eat a bunch. All right? There's no excuse for a 25-year-old person to be fat. They can be thin accidentally if they'll just not eat like lunatics. Okay? So diet's very important. But in terms of strength, the training has to be in place first. You can't get strong by eating correctly. All right? I wish it were that easy. Can't get strong by eating correctly. Somebody over here. All right?
Is there a place for corrective exercise in the Sergeant Strength program?
No. You know what corrective exercise is? Squat correctly. Squat correctly. If there's something wrong with the squat, how do we fix it? We fix the squat. If I find a problem with the squat when a guy's squatting 405, right? How would I take that guy out of the context of a 405 squat, have him do an exercise that cannot be done with 405, and then 6 weeks later come back to 405 and have the squat fixed? Do you see how utterly ridiculous that is? What happens to all the other muscles during that period of time that were also contributing to the squat? They detrain, right? So how do we fix an incorrect 405? We back up to 375 and we coach the movement. I know that's harder than corrective exercise, but we have to know how to coach the movement. How do we fix the squat? We have to learn. This is why the other way is so much more popular, right?
Can you use corrective exercise to help teach the squat?
How do you learn the squat without the squat?
Um,
I'd like to know, because it'd be easier if we could do that. But unfortunately, there isn't a way to do it. Because if we're in a squat, we have to squat. We have to learn how to squat. Somebody's got to teach you how to squat. If something's wrong with it, then what's the process? Figuring out what's wrong with it, looking at it, and then figuring out what to say to you to make it right. Figuring out how to communicate what the coach wants you to do in order that what you do becomes more in line with what the coach wants you to do. That's the coach's job. A special exercise doesn't do that, does it? Because it's not the movement pattern. The movement pattern of the squat is specific to the squat. Okay? There's ways to squat that are not technically wrong, but that are different than the squat we teach. Okay? But let's say you're squatting at 405, and in the second rep, your right knee caves in a little bit. Now you would interpret that as what? Lack of ability to maintain external rotation of that femur. Well, what do? Do I stop squatting and then do this with 12 pounds? And then how does that fix the squat? Well, you back off to a weight that you can do correctly. Figure out how to correct the movement pattern. This is why I say the movement pattern is the thing that must be corrected. And then whatever in the kinetic chain is responsible for the movement pattern deficit has to participate in its anatomically selected role within the movement pattern. At whatever load that works correctly, that's what we do. We start there and then go up incrementally. In reality, what happened? I, the coach, was not recognizing the problem as it developed. Because at 4:05, it didn't just show up one day. Something was going on that I, the coach, did not notice. Okay? So it all boils back down to me, the coach, doesn't it? Now, a corrective exercise is not ever going to substitute for me, the coach. Preventing movement pattern problems and correcting them if they arise. But a special exercise can't do that because a special exercise isn't the movement pattern.
Sorry, I agree that it all has to be learned within the context of the move.
Yes.
But what if you're using it to fix one component of the move, like finishing a deadlift with posterior pelvic tilt and using a glute bridge to cue that engagement of the glutes just to get the athlete feeling an open hip?
So what you're saying is, if I'm not doing this correctly, I should do something other than this correctly.
Just to feel the hip open.
Let me show you how you feel it open all the way. That's not real hard. See, that's a solution in search of a problem. Okay? If this isn't working right, like if you're not doing this, guess what we do to fix that? We do this. We stand up. Just stand up. We're making a special problem out of something that's not a special problem. And I understand, once again, this is fashionable right now. But I don't see the purpose of it. I really don't. Do you think that you can get somebody squat from 315 to 500 by doing glute bridges?
No.
No. No. So what would be more important? Glute bridges or squats? 5 pounds at a time.
Squat.
Yeah. Okay, back over here. Although you cheated because you're in the middle. Here's the question.
I got two up here.
All right, let's hear them.
How do you address the eventuality of hitting a plateau with the more intermediate athlete? And number two, what's your opinion?
One at a time. How do I, because I got to repeat these. I forgot to repeat his. I hope that showed up on the audio, right? So question number one is, how do I address the eventuality of an intermediate lifter reaching a plateau?
That's correct.
Well, when it happens, we change the program up. It's going to happen. Everybody reaches a plateau. And that's the purpose of all those chapters in practical programming for strength training. We address in great detail the way program variation later in an athlete's training advancement is extremely important, right? Later, it's terribly important. Periodization later on is the bread and butter of strength and conditioning coaching programming, right? But early on, when a kid's 5 weeks into a program, we don't change anything except the weight on the barbell. Because we don't need to change anything except the weight on the barbell in order to make progress occur. Now later on, when an intermediate gets stuck, we change up programming. For instance, probably the most popular intermediate program that we've developed is called the Texas Method. The Texas Method, for those of you that don't know, is a manipulation of training that involves weekly load increases. When we first start training, you can recover from a load increase in 48 to 72 hours. So if we come in, we have you squat, we press, we deadlift. We wait 2 days, then we do it again, and we go up in weight. Because in that period of time, you've recovered from that initial stress. You've adapted. Stress, recovery from the stress, and adaptation is the process. It's very simple. We introduce a stress. We feed you and let you rest so that you recover from the stress, and then the process of recovering from the stress, you adapt to the stress that was applied. And then we apply another stress that's a little bit harder, and process repeats. And that process can go on for several months without anything more complicated taking place than loading a little bit more, going up in weight a little bit more, recovering for 2 or 3 days, and then doing it again. Eventually, you will get strong enough to be able to apply enough stress to the system that you can't recover in 2 or 3 days. At that point, we have to make an adjustment because you have changed. You're not the same physiology that you were before. And as a result of that change, what we first do is go to a longer period of stress recovery and therefore adaptation, and that period of time becomes a week. And that's for societal purposes. We're all set up in weeks, so what we do is when a person stops being a novice, which is what we call the person who's able to recover from that initial stress in 2 or 3 days. When a person goes from a novice to an intermediate, we change that stress recovery adaptation period to 1 week. So what happens is we'll come in on Monday and we'll do this horrible thing called 5 sets of 5 across. And those of you that have done 5 sets of 5 across with 405 understand the brutal nature of this type of workout program. It takes a lot of time, it's very hard, and that workout by itself takes about a week to recover from. So what happens on Monday is that, and then Wednesday we come in, we do a light workout to kind of get some blood running back through these sore muscles. And then on Friday we do a little interesting thing in which we display your ability to do a much lower volume of work with a little heavier weight. So if you did 5 sets of 5 with 405 on Monday, we're going to come in on Friday and we're going to have you do 1 set of 5 with 445 or 455. That's not as much stress as the accumulated 25 reps with 405. But it does cause a different type of adaptation. And the accumulated week's worth of stress becomes the stress event from which you recover and get stronger. So there are several ways for intermediate lifters to apply that week-long stress event. Texas method is not suitable for everybody. I've always said that because it's too damned hard for lots and lots of people. There's several other programs we use in the book. But whatever process you use in your intermediate phase, you're going to get stuck. When you get stuck, you have to know, I'm getting near the end of this, and you have to change something up. Now, the question of what to change to may depend on several things. It may depend on your schedule, your level of interest, your other sports that you're engaged in, your level of commitment to barbell competition, these sorts of things. Okay, but to answer your question, you have to change up the program. But you don't change it before you should. You don't change it. In fact, you don't change up the novice program before you have investigated the possible causes for the stall that you can correct without changing the program. Okay? Most common process in a novice's training. Kid comes in about 5, 6 weeks into the program, says, I'm stuck. And I say, you can't be stuck. You're 5 weeks in, you can't be stuck. You don't get stuck for 4 or 5 months. Why are you stuck? I don't know, I'm stuck. So I have 3 questions I always ask, in this order. Question number 1, how long are you resting between sets? Kid says, well, at least 2 minutes. I'm resting at least 2 minutes. Well, there's your problem. We're not doing endurance training. This isn't a WOD. This isn't conditioning. This is strength training. How long do you rest between sets? 6, 7 minutes. At least 6 or 7 minutes, maybe 10 minutes. How long do you think the guy that's doing 405 for 5 sets of 5 across rests between his sets? 15, 20 minutes, maybe. Oh yeah, that's not any fun. It's not any fun. You got to rest a while. But if you're only resting 2 minutes between sets, that's a problem right there. Okay? Question number 2. Well, I'm resting 6 or 7 minutes. Well, that's good. Question number 2 is, how big are the jumps? How big are the jumps? The guy says, well, I'm taking 10-pound jumps on the bench press. Well, that's the problem. 10-pound jumps on the bench press don't work. They work for about 3 workouts, and that's all. Why do 10-pound jumps not work on the bench press? Because the muscles that determine whether you finish the rep are smaller than the muscles that determine whether you finish a deadlift. Deadlift can take bigger jumps than the press or the bench press. The smaller the muscle groups, the smaller the jumps have to be. So all you've got, the smallest plates you've got are 2.5 pounds. Then you're limited to 5-pound jumps, and that's too damn big. You have to get prepared with the right equipment to take small enough jumps that this strength adaptation can continue to accumulate slowly enough for you to adapt to the process of stress, recovery, adaptation. If you're trying to adapt in 5-pound jumps, it won't work forever, especially for the press and the bench press, and most especially for females. It won't work. You can't adapt that fast. So if you're trying to take too big jumps, that's the second reason everybody gets stuck. Those first 2, Inadequate rest between sets and too big a jumps account for probably 90% of all of these stucks in novice training. Okay, so those things have to be addressed immediately. The third thing we address is recovery. How much are you eating? I'll ask. How many calories do you eat today? Well, I got at least 1,800, 2,000 calories. That's not enough. That's not enough. If you're trying to gain weight, if you're an underweight male, and you're not eating 5,000 calories a day, you're not trying very hard. Josh. You're not trying very hard. Okay, you have to try. For people in an underweight situation, you're a skinny young male. I know you don't like to eat. I already know that because I can see you. Okay? And that means you're going to have to do something you don't like to do. I'm sorry, that's part of the deal. It takes a lot of calories to grow. Not only do you have to pay for the calories you burn, muscle growth is an endothermic reaction. It requires more calories than just what you're burning, because all the metabolic processes that are involved in accumulating contractile protein and building bone and every other thing that contributes to your growth take a lot of calories. There has to be a caloric surplus. Has to be a caloric surplus. Okay? But here's the deal. If you're 5'11", 155 pounds at 10% body fat, and you, over the course of 9 months, get to 205 pounds and 15% body fat, you didn't get fat. You went from 10% body fat to 15% body fat. Good. Right? Good. Good. I'm glad you gained some fat. You needed to. But also, how much muscle mass did you gain? That's the problem. When you are gaining, when you're trying to gain muscle mass, the process by which muscle is accumulated will also cause some fat to accumulate. It's unavoidable, and it's okay. It's okay. Here's the bad news. Those of you that are trying to lose weight, fat people trying to lose weight, a percentage of everything you lose will be muscle mass. It's unavoidable. Now you can control this process and skew it in the direction you want to with diet. But the unavoidable truth is that if you're going to lose 100 pounds of body fat, some of that, 100 pounds of body weight, some of that's going to be muscle. But here's another uncomfortable truth. The person who sits on the couch and eats chips and drinks Coke and gains 100 pounds of body weight also gains some lean body mass. That doesn't seem fair, does it? But it's what happens. Because the processes are inseparable. Okay? So, is that helpful? All right, what's your second question, since everybody else here is Canadian? All right?
What's your stand on, do you have an opinion on the conjugate method out of West Side Barbell?
We don't use it.
No opinion on it?
Doesn't work as well as what we do.
Okay, last topic.
Okay?
Anytime you talk strength training, you have to ask, what's your stand on anabolics and HGH?
Well, HGH doesn't build muscle tissue.
As far as the athletes you train?
I don't train anybody on drugs.
Okay.
You lost your mind?
No,
You want me to stand here in an auditorium full of people on an audio and video recording and say I train a bunch of people on drugs?
I didn't say that. I was
You must be from West Side.
I'm sorry?
You've lost your mind.
No, I promoted the Raw Pittsburgh Powerlifting Championships a number of years.
You're a good man. You'll notice that we sponsor the Pro Raw Challenge at the Arnold every year. Right?
Right.
You did notice that, right?
Yes, I'm aware of
What do you think our position on drug powerlifting
Well,
is?
we have you here.
Same as my position on the conjugate method. I don't recommend it. Now, do anabolic steroids work? Is that what you're asking me?
Well, no, I was just curious on your stand on it.
My stand on it is that you're probably lazy if you're taking a bunch of drugs or you're not training correctly. My stand on anabolic steroids is that obviously they work. That's why everybody likes to use them. But who do we train? We, our organization, who do we train? Novices, right? Do novices need to use anabolic steroids? Absolutely not. Our method works faster than anabolic steroids. If you'll add 5 pounds to your squat every workout and eat a whole bunch, I can put 60 pounds of body weight on a kid in 7 or 8 months. Can you do that without our methods and anabolic steroids? No. There you have it. Yes, ma'am. Strength training with barbells can be done with kids when they're 5 years old. Okay? But that's not really the question. Okay? Training is what? Let's talk about what training is. Exercise is what? What's the difference between exercise and training? All right? Exercise is going to the gym and getting on the treadmill and riding the treadmill while you're watching the news, and then go do a wad and get hot and sweaty, and then going over to the dumbbell rack, do some curls, and then going back in, taking a shower, and getting in the car and going home. What do? You got some exercise. You moved around, got hot, sweaty, and tired because of the effect it has on you today. Okay? You punched the ticket. You burned some calories. For a lot of people, that's all they need to do. Right? Training is what? It's the process of going from here to here. That's training. The slope is training. It's the process of starting here and for a specific purpose, manipulating physical parameters until you're here, right? It requires that there be a here, okay? Now, when you graduate from exercise to training, you will be thinking long term, and the process becomes very important. The process of strength training is different from the process of training for a marathon, isn't it? Because the adaptations you're trying to produce are completely different, right? Okay? So training and exercise are two completely different things. Now, what do you do with a 5-year-old kid? Are you going to train a 5-year-old kid? Not unless you're a criminal mastermind. What's a 5-year-old kid supposed to be doing? He's supposed to be playing it. He's supposed to play. Now, there's nothing wrong with showing a 5-year-old kid how to squat. The only thing about showing children how to squat is they're terribly bad at controlling their eccentric work. Okay? Their eccentric control, the lowering of themselves down into the squat. Some of you may have noticed that kids just kind of fall into the bottom. If they can be taught not to do that, then they can be taught how to safely squat, can't they? And then you approach it as play. And as they grow and get a little stronger, the weight on the bar will go up. But you can't approach a 5-year-old kid's training the way you can an 18-year-old man's training. A 5-year-old kid needs to exercise, and that exercise needs to be played. Okay? But to the question of the barbell exercises are perfectly safe for 5-year-old kids if they're done correctly. You've got to know how to solve those problems at the age of 5, because it's different than solving the problems at the age of 18, because we're communicating with a different animal, right? But as far as training a kid with a novice program, that can't be done, because they can't recover from stress like that. We wait till Tanner stage 4 before we do that. Tanner stage 4. Look it up. Wikipedia is your friend. Okay? Yes, sir? Since this side's quiet over here, we'll go to you.
So we know this works. We know this works. We know strength training works.
Yes.
Everybody who does this knows it works.
Yes.
The problem is,
Oh, I know. Jesus, I know. Don't tell me. Don't tell me, man. I don't know. Well, we have to educate these people, and we're doing a terribly bad job of it because they think they're already educated.
I want to know how do we get this to mainstream?
It's a good idea. Good question. I don't know. If you're dealing with a group of people that already thinks they know what you're talking about and that they already have concluded that you're wrong, I don't know. All you can do is go on about your business, turn out stronger people, and prove them wrong. And then maybe they'll age out and die, and we can replace them with a more effective generation of professionals. That's my suggestion. That's been my suggestion for the military for a long time. The officers that are in place right now that maintain this endurance paradigm for combat readiness, we can't do anything with them. They have to die. We're going to wait here until they die, and then we're going to move our people into the positions of authority that are in a position to more effectively train combat troops for what actually gets experienced in the field. Right? Sometimes you can't fix it. You just have to let nature take its course. There's an attrition rate. All 60-year-old pediatricians that will shamelessly tell all the mothers with little kids in there that, no, you can't have your son do squats. That'll stunt his growth. The good news is that guy is going to die. That guy is going to die soon. Now, I'm not suggesting that we help him along. I'm just suggesting that it'll be a happy day when it occurs, because it will remove a giant obstacle from what we're trying to do and from the improvement of a lot of people's lives. Okay? All right? Everybody's loosening up now, you know, except you guys. Y'all shut up. Okay? Well, we just worked the range of motion that she's got. All right. She wants to know, I'm real bad about repeating the question, Nick. You need to remind me to do that. What do we do about a 55-year-old housewife with a limited range of motion because of inactivity? How do we train her? Is that the right question? Well, we train the range of motion that she's got, and we just keep training her. And what happens is, unless there's bony impingement, unless there's a reason why that range of motion can't improve, then what we find is the range of motion improves. If the range of motion is limited, such that she cannot improve the range of motion, we're going to improve her strength over the range of motion she can display. Right? We train people with knee and hip replacements all the time. Knee prostheses, hip prostheses. Sometimes those people's range of motion is limited due to the surgery. What do? Well, we just train the range of motion that's there. You know, we don't try to push into the range of motion because it's artificially limited by the prosthesis. And the prosthesis can't be argued with, right? We don't want to go in there and screw anything up. So what we do is we use the range of motion we got and we get that range of motion stronger. Oftentimes what we find is the range of motion over a long period of time actually increases. Okay? But the movement patterns are still what we coach. Okay? The compound movement patterns, using lots of joints, lots of muscles, all at the same time, the way the normal body functions. If it's compromised, we work within that compromise and try to improve it. Okay? Anybody over here want to step up? All right, let's go here. You're next, because we got to catch up on this side, all right?
What's your feelings on things like farmers walk, sandbag, dairy, like that?
Well, I think they're wonderful exercises, but how do you train them? All right, repeat the question. What are my feelings about farmers' walks, sandbag carries, what he calls primal movements, which is strongman drive stuff, right? And my feelings are that they're wonderful exercises, but how do you train them? How do you train, how do you incrementally increase a person's ability to do a farmer's walk? You could do heavier and heavier farmer's walks, right? And they make implements for that. But wouldn't it be better to incrementally increase their deadlift? Because what happens is you take a person's deadlift from 405 to 700. What happens to their farmer's walk? And what else happens? Everything else gets better too. Whereas if we increase the farmer's walk, 50 yards over the course of a year, without increasing strength, then what else have we benefited? Not nearly as much as if we've just strengthened the whole organism. So you got to take a general approach to these things. Farmer's walk is a good way to display grip strength and overall manhood, right? Right? And they're fun. But what's the best way to train a farmer's walk? Farmer's walk or the deadlift and the squat and the press. See my point? It all devolves back to bang for the buck, right? Sandbag carry is the same way, right? It's a way to display what's already there. And what's the most efficient way to develop what's there is the barbell stuff, right? I mean, the most important exercise for strongman competition is what? What will all of them tell you? Get your deadlift up. You need to get real big and you need to get your deadlift up over 700 pounds. Right? Even if you're not a deadlift specialist, trying to push for a 900-pound deadlift, you still, as a strongman competitor, are going to be better off if you're deadlifting 7 than if you're deadlifting 4, right? And the process of adding 300 pounds to your deadlift improves everything you do in a contest. So that's how you improve. You have to practice the movements that you're going to perform at the meet. But how do you train for strength for those movements? Right? Absolutely, okay.
Okay, so going off of her question, and I think some of his earlier.
So going off of her question, and I think some of his earlier.
So say you have like a high school student that you're teaching the deadlift to,
Say I have a high school student I'm teaching the deadlift to.
and you can't get them to understand chest out, shoulders back, and a certain point,
And I can't get them to understand chest out, shoulders back, and at some point they're rounding the thoracic spine.
do you just train them to raise the bar off the ground?
No, I don't. I teach the movement. I teach the movement. I know how to fix that.
So if you don't know how to fix that, you just need to study the movement?
You need to learn how to fix it. You need to learn how to fix it.
What do you do in the process while you're learning how to fix that? What do you do with that kid immediately?
Well, you back him off to a weight he can do absolutely correct. There's a weight he can do in thoracic extension, right? There's not. Well, then you haven't been able to teach him correctly. If there's a weight he can't do in thoracic extension, the empty bar, he can't do the empty bar in thoracic extension.
What if their hips are, they don't have the right flexion?
Hip flexion, you mean this? People can't do that?
I mean, like getting down to the bar. Like if I were to raise the bar off the ground, maybe a half a foot, they can get that, and then getting them down to the ground.
We don't have a problem with this. We don't have a problem with this because we're teaching the deadlift different than you are. The teaching method we use for the deadlift eliminates these problems. How many of you guys have been to my seminar? Handful. At the seminars you've been to, how many people had the problems she described? None of them. Because we don't teach it the way you do. What I'm saying is there's a way to teach it. There's a way to teach it that eliminates these problems. This is what I mean. You have to learn how to coach these movements. It may not be the way you're doing it right now, but if you're having problems like that, then the way you're using is not working, and you need to find another way to coach it. It's possible to do. We do it every month. Every month.
So what she's talking about, it seems like you just have hip flexibility, like you can't bend over and touch his toes. So it's like he's starting from 0.
Right?
Whereas, what's the very first step when someone comes
far away are they from touching their toes?
Well, she's saying that she wants to lift the bar off the floor as much as she
Mhm.
can't bend over that far, and he wants to be pretty
No,
flexible.
we bend the knees and the hips, what we did there. And if the knees and the hips bend, what happens to the hamstring? They stay about the same length, don't they? Right? If the hamstrings stay about the same length, then how is hamstring flexibility a dependent variable? It's not. All right, here's another funny story. All right, most people who teach these movements are under the impression that you have to have extremely flexible hamstrings in order to teach the squat, in order to squat correctly. We have been doing seminars once a month for 25 people since 2006. During that period of time, I have had 4 people unable to squat below parallel Saturday morning. That's thousands of people. 4 people have failed to squat below parallel Saturday morning. 4. And 2 of those were old people. One of them was a kettlebell champion who was not old. All right? Why, if that's the case, if hamstring flexibility is so, and here's another little funny detail. We don't warm up before we squat. You know how we warm up the squat? We squat. If hamstring flexibility is this seriously important an issue, why is it that we have not had anybody fail to squat below parallel? Because we understand that the hamstring length, the length of the extensibility of the hamstring, is not the variable that limits squat depth. Skeletal positioning is, and that's what we teach. We teach you how to squat below parallel, and everybody can do it because it doesn't have anything to do with hamstring extensibility. Because when you flex the knees and flex the hips at the same time, as the hamstring pulls in this direction proximally, it's slacking distally at the same time. There's probably no net change in hamstring length during a squat, or in a properly performed squat. Isn't that crazy? Pretty crazy to think about it, though. Hamstring extensibility has been the source of a lot of wasted time. Okay, you just have to learn how to squat correctly. Okay? This is what I'm talking about earlier. You have to learn to coach these movements. I know it's hard, but it's your job as an exercise professional to learn it. It's your job to know. 2 more questions. All right?
As a swimmer, I've run into a lot of opposition when I talk about strength training.
Yes, sir. You will.
Would you say the program is beneficial for athletes that have like?
To the extent that force production is beneficial for swimmers, strength training is beneficial for swimmers. Swimming is a submaximal repetitive activity, like running, like riding a bike. The more submaximal you are able to make the repetitive activity by increasing your absolute strength, the less fatiguing it'll be, and the harder you can perform those submaximal contractions. Now, I know that a swimmer doesn't need to gain 20 pounds of lean body mass because it doesn't float very well. But that doesn't mean that we should not approach swimming with a strength training paradigm too. Okay? And who else had several questions? All right.
How do you, if it's appropriate, the role of high-intensity interval training for a person doing strength training?
It's not important at all. It's a waste of time.
What's the waste of time?
High-intensity interval training. What's the role of high-intensity interval training in strength and conditioning? There's better ways to condition. Much better ways to condition. One more, since that didn't take very long. All right.
So one of the things that I'm hearing a lot of is
coaching is how you learn.
And a lot of us have seen bad coaching.
Oh, yes.
Maybe been the subjects.
Oh, yes. Some of us have been the subjects of bad coaching.
And not
Absolutely.
all of us can get to Wichita Falls or Seattle or
Right.
or Latrobe.
Or Latrobe. I'm told it's Latrobe.
So one of my questions.
He's from out of town.
Is there a list or a place where we can look for people who have the
StartingStrength.org
Okay.
is the coaching directory. StartingStrength.org. That didn't take very long either. One more?
Let's give Josh the last one.
All right, Josh, you got the last question.
So it's really common to see the average gym goer working in the 8 to 12 rep range. I've even found
Yes.
as an intermediate trainee, it's helpful in some aspects of training.
Yes.
So can you touch on why the starting strength model at the novice level uses 5s, which would be higher intensity, lower volume work to develop strength?
All right. Question is, why do we use 5s instead of 8s to 12s? And that is because sets of 5 produce the metabolic adaptation that we would like to see. There is a continuum of adaptation from 1 rep to high reps, 20, 50, right? All right. 20 reps is what? It's dumb, it's done, it feels like shit. You get to the end of it and you can't see, and it's, you know, you can't breathe and you want to die. And the primary adaptation down here is what? Not caring how you feel. Not dying is the primary adaptation at 20. But is any rep of a set of 20 heavy? No. It's hard. The 20th rep is hard because of the fatigue. But is it heavy? No. What is force production? What is strength? Force production. Can a set of 20 make you stronger? No. Not in the sense that a set of 5 can. A set of 5 is done with heavier weight, right? And what is strength? Force production. Now, what's a single? A heavy 1 RM single. How hard is that? It's limited by how much force you can generate one time, right? What's its adaptation? What do you get from sets of 1? Strength, right? But we want more than just the ability to do 1 rep out of our training. We want an adaptation that falls somewhere between 20 and somewhere between 1. Well, the thing that falls squarely in the middle is not 10, believe it or not, it's 5. 5 has the best balance of repetition, of cardiovascular adaptation, of work capacity, and of force production, of all of the rep ranges within that continuum, between 1 and 50, okay? And in fact, we get asked about this all the time. What about 10 to 12 reps for hypertrophy? All right? Who has a bigger back? A guy that can deadlift 315 or a guy that can deadlift 705? Boys and girls? 705. And this is kind of, makes kind of good sense, doesn't it? Even if you decide you're going to use higher reps, who can use more reps with more weight? The guy that's pulling 700 or the guy that's pulling 315? Right? Really, what you need to do is just get strong. And the best way to get strong is sets of 5. Experience has proven sets of 5 do wonderful things that any other sets and reps just doesn't do. Coaches for 70 years have observed that sets of 5 form the basis of strength training for the compound movements. Okay? And we find them to be very beneficial, much more so than anything else. Okay? That it? Thank you for coming. Appreciate it. St. Vincent.